Hi, good morning, everyone. So, good to be the start of the day. Uh, that's the time you get the most set of people. Don't have enough people in the room, anyways. So, anyway, we're going to talk about D2C disruption, right? They're talking about disruption and changing business models and all of that stuff. I think, as we talk along today, we'll understand whether they are really disrupting anything or they've always been around and are just getting a lot more momentum, right? D2C is probably a term that we've heard of, quite a bit over the last maybe 2 years, 3 years, really. It's kind of picked up. But having a chat with my colleagues here, um, I do realize, and I'm sure a lot of you will, that D2C has been around for several years, right? It's not the last 2, 3 years that it's been picked up. There have been brands which have quietly been working behind the scenes, building their brand and their business. What's happened probably in the last 2, 3 years is just more marketing around the term D2C. More marketing brings more visibility. More visibility brings more focus to the business. More focus to the business brings more support, maybe from the government and all of that. And you have other people, maybe on supply chain, on the customer side, then coming in to help all of these businesses. And then with increased focus comes increased revenue, right? So I think we'll talk about the stories of these businesses. I'll start off with maybe let's start from that side. Avnish, CaratLane, one of the oldest on the panel D2C brands and very successful. Talk us through your stories, and we'll go through each of them. What's been your startup thought process? How have you kind of progressed? Some of the challenges that you've seen. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. See, actually, CaratLane, I don't know how many of you know, kind of started way back in 2008. It was launched then. Uh, the way it started, that Mithun, who's the founder of CaratLane, comes from a jewelry family. So he saw a couple of things as a jewelry retailer. One, that everybody made beautiful jewelry designs just for the higher price points, largely focused on the wedding category. So there was a clear, large, white space to make beautiful jewelry in the lower price points. Second, also this country was largely plain gold focused. So there was a clear merchandising or design opportunity sitting over there. Second, he also saw how businesses were being run, right? And there was very little scale very little possibility for them to scale. They had large showrooms with a lot of inventory and done in a very, very traditional manner. And then when he was studying in the US, he saw how digital methods of doing business were kind of disrupting the, I would say, retail business in America. This is around 2003, 4, 5, 6. So he kind of saw that there was a possibility to create a new business model for a different customer at a different price point using digital. This, in a way, is the genesis of the idea of CaratLane. We started in 2008, and for those of you who were around then, you would know that there was no Amazon or Flipkart also back then. The ecosystem was like there was no ecosystem at all. So we went through a lot of pains, obviously, to attract customers, even employees, because nobody wanted to work for a company which was trying to sell jewelry online. And the idea also came because, actually solitaires would sell a lot because it was a fairly commoditized product. So that's how CaratLane started. I think we went through our phases. We kind of started hitting 1 crore revenue per month around 2011. Around 2014-15, we had touched 10 crores of revenue. In 2016, a big change happened where the Titan Group came on as a strategic investor in CaratLane. We had a bad period in 2019-20 around COVID. In 2021, we finally broke even and became profitable. We started opening stores in around 2013. The initial ones were a big disaster, but then we kind of got the model right. And now for the last couple of years, I think we have really started to scale up. Now we have 245 stores present in 96 cities, more than 2,000 crores in revenue, and profitable in the right way without any creative accounting. And now we don't have a problem that when we say we are from CaratLane, people say, "Acha, what is that?" Which used to be once upon a time, right? So in that sense, I think we have gone through this long journey, and now we look at others who might, disrupt us. Although we still have the mindset of saying we still are, in a day zero mindset, but that's pretty much the story. And, when you mentioned D2C, you are right that, I think the industry just keeps bringing in new terms. So there used to be click and break, e-commerce, phygital, DTC. I think there will be always be a new term when some intellectual comes with a new word. But I think a lot of these businesses have been around for a long, long time. It's just that, when you reach a certain scale, then the media starts to write about you.
Yeah, so I think we'll have an ongoing conversation. You seem to have started at a point when internet e-commerce was not that big. So you've started with the physical side of the business,
We
right?
started online.
We started online.
In 2008, we started online.
Okay, at that time.
And in fact, before we opened stores, we started Traya at home.
Okay.
And then we opened stores. And for the longest time, we had around 7, 8 stores and 14, 15 stores because we were still trying to get the model right.
Mm-hmm.
Once I think we got the model right, then we have started to expand rapidly.
To roll out.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's move to Dhiraj.
Hey, hi. So the story of Campus Sutra is that of a journey from Atma to Atmanirbhar, right? We started Campus Sutra from a 400 square feet office in a building which was supposedly haunted. So we found this place MG Road के पास, which is like central Bangalore, जो 32 years से 32 साल से खाली था. वहाँ story था कि रात को भूत आता है. Nobody wanted to get in there, and we started from there. We have built the biggest bootstrap fashion brand in the country. Started online, obviously, like he was mentioning. Now we are in about 500 outlets across all the departmental stores and Shoppers and Central and Reliance and Brand Factory. We are also the only fashion brand to be present in 22 countries. So we are in Europe, we are in US, we are in Canada, we are in Middle East. What we have built, I think, and again, our story goes back 8 years when D2C was not a word. In fact, a lot of things that you see in the e-commerce ecosystem, right? We have had some contribution or the other. So anything that you see in even Amazon or Flipkart or Mintras of the world, right? A lot of those things have started from our premises and have kind of, all the models have grown from there. What we have built, I think, is basically a stack which has 4 layers. One, which is consumer understanding, which is on the top, built with a lot of technology. Second is in the sourcing piece. Third is with the operation side of the business. And fourth is with scaling, right? Fashion business, I think, is an easy business to start. इसमें 20-25 करोड़ का business बनाना बहुत उतना कोई मुश्किल नहीं है. And any half decent guy with some brains can build a 20-25 crore business. The challenge to build a fashion business is how do you kind of scale that? And there we have taken a very diametrically opposite view from what usually D2C brands, so-called D2C brands take, right? Which is by focusing on the front end. We have focused on the back end and have built a business for scale. So this is a business that can now, it's already sizable and can grow to a 2-3,000 crore. And this we built it right from day one. Because what is required to build a scalable fashion business is very different from how an FMCG or a beauty personal care or food brand has to kind of, the journey is very different. So I think that's been our story and that's been our journey.
I think that's an interesting point you make, that any half decent person can actually get started with a fashion business. And I know people who have done that, right? Who have started with some apparel. It's not very difficult to come up with a bunch of designs which might excite people, but then the scale. So I think we'll talk about scale in the next round as we go about with the questions, right? What are you thinking about scaling? How are you going to go about it? How are you going to keep your relevance to the customer, given that competition is increasing significantly? Yeah, so Charanjeev, how about talking to us about Singh Styled? Really interesting name, interesting proposition you have. Yeah.
So, Sat Sri Akal to everyone out here. So for 400 years, so Sikhism is a 400 plus or a young faith, right? It's not a religion, it's a faith, right? And for 400 years, our gurus have given us an identity which is very unique. It's global, right? We got a turban, we got a beard. It's like even in this whole room, you can identify there's one Sardar sitting, right? But for 400 years, there was no brand that actually catered to this identity, right? Till my grandfather, even till 2014 when we started off, we were using gums and all to set up beards, right? If you see a Sardar, if you go to Delhi and all, you'll see a lot of Sardars with that white patta early in the morning because they're setting their beards. And I was before Singh Styled, I was actually working on another startup, and then घर में ऐसी बात हो गई कि why all your youth is now just moving away from the identity. And I said, it's very tough to maintain the identity because you're not getting products which are today's generation needs quality products. They need quality beard care products, quality turbans and all, which you're not getting. And that gave birth to Singh Style. But Singh Style, the thought was that Singh Style should not be just another turban and beard brand. It needs to be like a style brand or like a GQ. One of my customers had said that, यार तू GQ को सरदारों के लिए क्यों नहीं बनाता? And I said, GQ क्या होता है? तो बोलते हैं, यार वो fashion magazines आती हैं. So do something like that, right? And that's the birth of Singh Style. So when we started off in 2015, we started with 4 or 5 turban shades and a few beard care products. Today, we got more than 110 shades of turbans. By 2025, we'll be having around 600 turban shades. So we want to become the Asian Paints of turbans. And we've got a full-fledged R&D center, which is 24/7 working on formulations for the Sikh beard. And that's been the journey so far. We've been shipping our, बोलते हैं ना कि सरदार तो सब जगह फैक्ट्री है, but सरदारों की चीज़ें नहीं अब तक पहुंची हैं. So that's something that now we are cracking. We started shipping to 130 destinations, domestic as well as international. We just recently opened our warehouse in Singapore, which now caters to the whole Asia Pacific region. And our mission is that every Sikh child born should know that there is a big brother called Singh Style, which is going to take care of the identity. So you don't need to, move away from the faith because just for the lack of products. So that's the thing that Singh Style is trying to solve.
Okay, so we'll talk in the second round when we talk about scale. I just want to understand a little bit more about how are you going to scale your customer base. I mean, you are a very niche audience, so we'll talk about that. Saloni, how about talking to us? She's a health tech startup co-founder. So talk to us about your journey with Traya.
Hello everyone, I'm Saloni, co-founder at Traya. Well, Traya is a hair loss solution company, 100% online, truly D2C. We were just discussing 98% of our revenue comes from our website and app. Well, Traya was actually born out of a personal health struggle that my husband and I were going through. Traya is his third startup. We both are also co-founders here at Traya. His second food startup, a failed, struggling startup, gave him a lot of health issues, hypothyroidism, aggressive balding. He was 25 kgs heavier than he should have been. And there came a point where we decided, okay, let's focus on health. So we took a sabbatical. We hired a Sodexo CEO in his previous food startup, and we took a break. This was back in 2017. And we actually were chasing his thyroid problem. In that chase, we realized that how broken the chronic healthcare system in India is. There's probably just 1 or 2 pills available that a doctor can, an endocrinologist can use for thyroid. And with that, it felt like, he was already at a 125 dosage, highest possible dosage. There was nothing happening. It was not getting controlled. We moved to understanding what else can be done. And he comes a little bit about his background. He comes from a biochemist, scientist background, so got into research of what else can be done about hypothyroidism. Fast forward 6 months later, we brought in Ayurveda to our life along with what the endocrinologist was doing. We brought in food science on what we can change in what we are eating to manage the disease. And in that journey, we realized how powerful the philosophy of mixing sciences can be and is the need of the day for a chronic disease. He brought his thyroid levels down to normal. His hair regrew, and we were happy back to our jobs and back to our life. 2 years later, we realized that this could actually be a startup, because so many of our friends, we were 27, 28 back then, and so many of our friends came to us and say, yaar, tere baal ug gaye, mere bhi uga de, kya ho raha hai, meri shaadi hone wali hai. And we realized that because hair was so visible, people wanted to know what we did with our life. And we explained it's complicated. You have to meet this doctor, number one, number two, Ayurved in Dadar, dermatologist here, and you'll have to do all of this. We saw people failed, and hence we started research in the chronic space. The more we researched, the more excited we got about hair, because one, it's a mass problem. Two, the hair industry is completely broken. If you go out and ask people, what do you do for your hair loss? Either they will say, ye to hona hi hai, iska kuch nahi ho sakta, which means they're disbelievers. Or they'll be using some hair fall shampoo or oil or some product. The marketplaces, the internet is full of thousands of brands selling you hair fall products, but they don't work. So we decided that let's get into a clinical study of really putting together the formulations. 1 year later, our clinical trial was over, and we had a 93% efficacy of hair regrowth that nobody had heard anywhere in the world. That study was done at a smaller base because of budget constraints. So we realized that let's do the biggest pharma study possible, and we need money for that. And we went ahead, raised fund, did a clinical study. So I think even though Traya started in 2019, the first 1 year went into formulations and clinical study. 2020 is when we went live as a brand. November 2020, Traya was launched. I think Traya is a very good example of how D2C can disrupt. We are completely online. We diagnose hair online with a photograph. There's image processing, there's AI. So 10 years ago, if I had tried doing Traya, probably Traya would be just a set of clinics, right? But today, because of the technology, because of the mobile phones that all of us have, all of this could have been done online. We have a team of doctors that looks at every case. So it's a doctor-prescribed treatment, and people get started onto Traya. We've had a phenomenal journey so far. We grew about 20x in the last 1 year. Yeah.
Nice. So interesting stories from everyone. I think one common thread that I see with everybody is that the founders of the businesses saw an opportunity somewhere, saw a gap somewhere, and decided to fill that gap. I think that's what I see right across the board with everybody out here. What I see in the market to some degree happening is a lot of also rans kind of D2Cs who seem to say, okay, if food is doing well, I'm going to just add on and create my own gourmet food and kind of sell it, or create my own apparel line and try to sell it. So I think one good thing that I see here is that they've seen an opportunity, they've seen a gap in the market, and then try to fulfill that gap. Let's talk a little bit about, as I said, scaling up, right, of the businesses. So I'll go back to Avnish to begin with. Avnish, as CaratLane, you all have grown to a fairly large size already, right? And then we were talking that you've been acquired by Titan. When you were not acquired, when you were running independently, you must have been able to scale at a certain pace. Having now been acquired by Titan, do you see, how do you see your CaratLane kind of scaling up? Did you feel that there is any difference in the dynamic pre and post? If you can just talk to us about that. Yeah.
See, if I understand the question correctly, you are asking how did the problem of scaling.
Okay, I'll come to it. As an independent brand that starts up, you have a lot of agility and nimbleness. Decision making is fast. You can take some decisions freely. You can take some risks maybe.
Yeah.
You're a decent sized business, so of course the risk averseness becomes a little higher. So now with corporate having to invest and put in a good amount of money in your business, does that impact your dynamic of scaling up?
See, actually it doesn't, and I'll tell you, I'll take you back to 2016 when Titan first came in. And see, the reality is that actually nothing has changed, because when they came in 2016 also, Titan had 63% share in CaratLane. With 63%, you can pretty much make any decision which you want. So that way, nothing has changed. But I'll also share that, what benefited CaratLane from the entry of Titan, right? See, the one thing is that even today at this size and scale also, they remain very, very hands off. We just have a board meeting every quarter, we agree on our annual goals, and then they let us run it the way we want to. What we have really, so in that sense, the agility or whatever doesn't get impacted at all. But what we learned from them is that, there's a lot of know-how which they also had. So while, the business model is different, so there are many parts of our business which are different from Titans, but there are many common elements also, right? There are many parts of the supply chain where you can learn from them. There are many parts about brand building which you can learn from them. There are many parts about opening stores, the entire project management, finding locations, etc., which you can learn from them. And those are all things which we have learned from Titan because they already knew that, right? And I think that's the entire part about getting a strategic investor, because there's a lot of know-how about solving problems and building scale which can come from them. So I think that ways, we have had the unique situation that while we have preserved our own core identity and our strengths, we have got this additional layer of know-how from Titan about solving certain type of problems which they also solve. So today, there might be parts about the digital parts of the business or the omni where they might not bring in any know-how, but there are many other parts, because a business is still a business, right? And there are, whether it is DTC or any other type of business, there will be some elements which are common. And those are the things which you have really learned from them.
Yeah, so there's a lot of complement, there's a lot of stuff you can kind of leverage off Titan. Exactly, absolutely. I want to come to Charanjeev for a bit. Yeah, you talked about the Sikh audience, right? Being your audience, and you said you kind of. In fact, I see your turban, and I was just complimenting him on the design of his turban because I generally see all solids, right? Fairly boring normally, but he was pretty exciting. So you have focused yourself on a very niche audience, right? Uh, just give us an idea about the fact that is this good enough for you to scale as the business grows, or do you have, what's the next kind of expansion that you could look at horizontally? Are you looking at a different audience or just focus on this? Just talk to us about your value proposition for the customers.
So, to answer this, it's broken into two parts. The first part is, yes, we are always going to remain focused on the community. And the reason also is that we see, if you go to see, when you say talk about scale, I talk more about lifetime value of a customer. Okay, so we are predominantly in a place where there are not too much of competition. Even if it's there, it's not. It's good because then that's going to help to build products which were not being done earlier, right? So right now there are only one or two players within that market space, and if you build the right product for the right audience, or for the audience which was hungry always, you have a person who starts today at the age of 24 and he'll till his death he's going to remain with you, because nobody else is, there's no Hindustan Lever or a PNG or any other D2C brand building that, because for them that market size is very, very small. For me, I don't need to spend too much to acquire the guy because I'm just fulfilling the need, right? Now coming to the second part, to give you a very surprising statistics out here, nearly 30% of our customers buying beard care products are non-Sikhs, right? When it started off, I used to call them up and ask them, why did you are buying? Because there's no Singh or Kaur or, and they're saying, yaar, Sardar ka brand hai. You all are born with a beard. I'm like, excuse me. So they think, no, means you know how to take care of the beard. We know that the product that you're building will be, thought through. So that has built a trust automatically within a Sikh brand, right? And they have been buying. And after I think we came into Shark Tank, and then we started saying that on Shark Tank we had said that our products are non-alcoholic. A lot of our Muslim brothers started pouring in, because even they were looking out for products which are non-alcoholic. And that's the beauty about Singh Style, right? So it's like I always say, we are like a langar saver, right? the langar is always done at the Gurdwara or wherever the Guru Granth Sahib has been kept, but it's open for everyone. So our products we build it for the Sikh community, but it's open for everyone. A lot of our women are using our K Sheila, which is actually a beard softener for their hair, right? And I used to be, these are surprising informations that I keep on getting interacting with customers. So for us, scale is defined that our customers should remain lifelong. We don't need to spend too much. Figure out the need, fulfill that need, and then move forward.
Yeah, so that's interesting that you've got now other the non-Sikh community, for example, finding the people with the beards, finding your stuff good, right? So, are you doing anything then from a marketing or a customer, kind of demand sensing point of view that do I have customers who are non-Sikh, for example, but who might still use your product, or are you still just focused on this
See,
one target
the
audience?
thing is that uh, the brand is so small actually that we are hardly like it's a team of 8 to 10 people. We've
Okay, it's
outsourced most
small
of us,
at this point.
right? So we
Fine.
played our cards in that way.
Got it.
But the thing, and because of that small team, the interaction with customers on a daily basis,
Yes,
right?
sure.
So when we are talking to our non-Sikh friends also, they have actually given us brilliant ideas which we are actually implementing. So like open beards, right, is something which we most of us when we were building products which was to stick the beard and all. Now we started. They gave us ideas. Why don't you do it for open beards? And then we started when we are now getting into the UK and US markets. Over there, a lot of Sikhs they keep their beards open. So the products that we are building for them right here is something that we are marketing it. So it's a cross marketing thing happening,
Yeah.
and
Got it.
that's something which is so Singh Styled is actually in a good place.
Yeah, you're in an early
Yeah,
stage. You're early stage. You don't want to spray yourself to
yeah,
spread
and
yourself too
the
thin.
focus.
Yeah.
So the one thing which I tell every founder is that you remain focused on something which you started with. If you're going to move across the board, you first finish the job which you started for, right? Once that is done, then you think about pivoting into a different or coming out, looking at other markets and all. First, ये market को तो खत्म करो. Then let's talk
Makes
about.
makes very good sense. Excellent takeaway out of that. Uh, with that same point, I'm going to go to Dhiraj because you said I'm in 22 countries, right? You've expanded, and your target audience is, as you said, 18 to 35 young folks, right? So, what has been that trigger for you that's made you expand to so many countries when there is a decent size market even out here available? And just talk to us about that.
So yeah, we're talking about size, right? What's the size of Levi's in India? Take a guess. Open to the audience, right? Levi's, UCB, some of these brands. What's the size of Levi's in India? Any guesses? Guys, all of you are from retail, D2C. Take a guess. Any number.
No, no more.
No, I'm talking about the size of the business, right? कितने revenue कितना होगा उनका? Somebody like Levi's.
In India, there'll probably be 10,000 crores.
Divided by 10.
Divide by 10,000 crores.
Yeah, so after being in India for about 20, 30 years with so many stores, with whatever brand image and all of that, right? The country still lacks depth, right? We need to understand that. A lot of people don't understand the numbers. While this is going to change drastically in the next 4-5 years because, to counter my own point, when the per capita goes up from 2,500 to 5,000, which will happen in India in the next 5-6 years, all your discretionary purchases go up 4-5 times. So in the next 5-6 years, Levi's has taken, I don't know, 25 years to build a 1,000 crore business. But in the next 4-5 years, it might become 5,000. Besides that point, right? So in fashion, and another data point, how many brands in the top 100 brands in anything, in fashion, in FMCG, are owned by companies which have a portfolio of brand? Take a guess, take a number. So if you take the top 100 brands in India and associate it with companies, out of the top 100 brands, how many are with companies which have a portfolio of brand? Any number again? Any guesses? So about 60, 65 brands, right? Out of the top 100 brands, 65 brands are owned by companies which have a portfolio. So HUL, P&G, Reliance, Arvind, Madura, right? So a lot of people don't realize, and especially in the D2C world, to build a scalable business, it is not, just doing something very small or just doing it in a niche is not good enough. 50-100 करोड़ का बिजनेस बन जाएगा, but यदि किसी को 5,000 करोड़ का बिजनेस बनाना है, तो you need to think out of the box. You can't be doing what everybody is doing. Any industry at a median level does not make money. And in the consumer business, my thought process is that 90% of the median is 90%, not 50%. So 90% of the companies will not grow to scale, will not make money. So to break out of that mold, you have to do things which are different. So that has been our pursuit right from day one, right? Whenever we do anything, सबसे पहला क्वेश्चन हमारी टीम यही पूछती है, इट्स बिकम लाइक अ कल्चर, राइट? हाउ आर वी डूइंग इट डिफरेंटली? यदि रिलायंस ये कर रहा है या फिर कोई नया D2C ब्रांड ये कर रहा है, then we can't do that. We should not be doing that. We have to get some differentiation at every stage. And that differentiation can come in product, it can come in price, it can come in positioning, it can come in market. So that's our thought process in terms of growing. I'm not here to create a 1,000 crore business. I'm here to create a 5,000 crore business. So if you take that as the premise, if you take that as your vision, then you need to work backwards and see how you can achieve that number. So that's what we have been doing. A lot of things that a lot of people talk about offline now. We started our offline journey way back, about 3-4 years back, right? International, still not too many people are doing international. When we say international, we have companies, subsidiary registered in Europe, we have subsidiaries in US, Canada, who are full-time doing that work. It's not a one-off thing that we are doing remotely. So we are serious about creating a big international business. We think there's a huge opportunity of creating international brands out of India because capital is no longer a moat. Earlier, only a Reliance or Arvind could build brands क्योंकि 1000 स्टोर खोलना पड़ता था, उसके लिए पैसे चाहिए थे. Now, अब वो पैसे नहीं चाहिए. Lot of, you can substitute that money with lot of other things, right? So we are very serious about this, and international already is giving a huge chunk of our business, and it's the fastest growing, right? Similarly with offline, similarly with a lot of other things that we are doing. But the idea is to create a big business and then we work backwards. And at our core is कि जो भी करना है कुछ ना कुछ अलग करना है. Can't do the same thing that everybody else is doing.
So is the international only contributing to revenue or also margin?
Huge margin.
Huge margin. Yeah. Because if you see brands like, you see the Tata Group, for example, you see Reliance, right? They've all built their entire businesses in India. They haven't gone outside India. They didn't feel the need to do it. But yours is an interesting strategy. It's different, right? That I want to expand my revenue. I'm getting great profit. I think the biggest thing then is fast decision, ability to take decisions and take the risk and kind of go ahead and do that.
Also, it's creating differentiation for us in the Indian market, right? For example, recently we launched, a couple of years back, we launched a jewelry brand, which is going to be the fastest 100 crore brand in India. I mean, in the next 6 months or so, it should be about a 100 crore brand, just in 2.5 years, right? And we created that brand thinking of the international market first. So a lot of things that we did with that, right? For example, all the girls out here who use jewelry, you'll realize that, you'll have an allergy, you will have a lot of itching and all of that, right? That happens because in India, the regulations allow you to use products like cadmium. It allows you to use nickel, lead. 90-95% of the jewelry in India have all these elements. These are not allowed in West, right? They're barred. They have REPEX and they have a lot of these regulations. So when we created a product for the international market, we were forced to create a product which was free of cadmium, which was free of nickel, which was free of lead. So just by virtue of that, it is a far superior product than what we have in the market. And a lot of those kind of things, thinking international first helps you in kind of, creating the right product and creating differentiation even in the Indian market.
Okay. So Saloni, in your case, you're a completely online brand, right?
Completely online.
But as you said, it is hair
Loss.
growth, hair loss or hair growth, whatever.
Hair growth.
You can say the positive side of it.
Yes.
So basically, it seems to be a kind of business. As I think about it, it's something where somebody wants personal interaction, right? Physical contact with somebody, talk, discuss, and all of that. How do you cater to that, given that you're a completely online brand?
Sure. So first would want to explain medically, when you go and see your dermatologist, they do not check your pulse rate or blood pressure, or they don't touch you. So medically, it is not a need that for diagnosis, you need a physical interaction. In fact, there are no blood tests as such that is needed in the first visit on diagnosis. What the doctor actually does is take a peek at your head to understand where is it that the hair loss is happening. So medically, hair loss is called pattern hair loss, androgenic alopecia, right? So whether it's happening on the forehead, on the top of your head, all over. So just a peek on your head, and otherwise the diagnosis is entirely clinical. What I mean by clinical is they'll ask you, do you sleep well? What are your stress levels? What do you eat? How is your digestion? What are the other health issues you have? So it's more interaction based, yes, but not physical as such. So that made us initially realize that it can be online. And then coming to the consumer perception, right? It is a trust piece, right? Trust is a big barrier here. It's a completely competitive, cluttered market when you look at hair loss solutions. What really helped us in the early days was the entire model, right? So if you land on Traya website, you cannot just buy off the shelf product and go back home. You have to go through a hair test. And the diagnosis has about 20 long questions. It's almost like interacting with a doctor, but in the online virtual world, where we ask not just the questions that a dermat would ask, but also questions that an Ayurveda doctor would ask. So we have questions like, how are your energy levels when you get up in the morning? Because that's very important for the Ayurveda doctor. We take pictures of your head. We analyze what stage you are by taking pictures of your head, and then put together a plan that, hey, this is where you are, this is what is going to happen. And once people purchase, we actually assign, we don't leave it to tech entirely, we actually assign a dermatologist and Ayurveda doctor who look at the case, put up a prescription, a digital signed prescription, and then the program, plan, and the product set is sent out to the customers. In the early days, we realized that out of 100 people, even in a city like Bombay, only 2 actually reach a dermatologist for their hair loss. So even if there are doctors and I'm using Mumbai because if you look at India, there is another problem that there are only 15,000 registered dermats in India. So if you look at the population of India and the number of people going through hair loss, we don't have doctors available. But for some reason, people just don't end up reaching a doctor. They are so busy wasting time with a hair fall shampoo or an oil, or my nani said, ye laga lo sar pe, ya wo kar lo. So the problem here is not that there is a physical, requirement of touch. The problem here is that the consumer is misaligned to what is it that the solution is. And a lot of this, thanks to mediums like YouTube, Google, Facebook, Instagram, a lot of this education can now be done online. And Traya used that. We have a very content-heavy, education-driven marketing channel where a consumer, when lands on the Traya website, already knows why Traya works, why they have what they've used in the past has not worked. And hence, there is a trust factor that makes them buy online.
Very good point. So trust, you're using technology to some degree to be able to cover the physical interaction bit. Moving on to the technology side, coming to Avnish, CaratLane jewelry, looks like a great opportunity for using tech. If you can talk to us about how you are using tech or how do you wish to use it to enhance. This is a huge opportunity. Yeah.
See, actually, now we are like a full-fledged omni business in that sense, right? So I can tell you that each and everything in CaratLane today is already digitized. And, if I give you certain examples, right? The way jewelry design happens and then how it is tested before it is launched, how our whole supply chain works, how our, in fact, now the whole entire, the way we test what people are browsing inside the store. So each and every part, each and every interaction which you have, whether inside the store or on our call center. So I can say that today pretty much everything in CaratLane is already digitized, right? And technology obviously offers the advantage of handling scale, right, with less mistakes. But the other big advantage which we have in the way we use technology is all the data which comes from it. And I can tell you that there is so much data which can come if if you get out of this mindset that I need to have nice analytic solutions, because a lot of the information which you need cannot be tracked by the regular technology and analytic solutions. And often the models miss that because, you have to otherwise deal with a lot of messy data. So a lot of the data comes from solutions which we have created to track things. And I think the biggest advantage is in the decision making which comes because of that. I think I would say with reasonable confidence that pretty much everything which we have is already digitized. So in that sense, we kind of stay, in touch with the times, I would say. But at the same time, I also want to add a word of caution. There is so much new technology which is coming in, right? There was a time where metaverse was such a big thing, and now you have ChatGPT, etc. And I see a lot of people getting caught up in that. They will ask you questions about why are you not using metaverse, or how are you using metaverse, or even something as simple as VR or AR, right? And everybody assumes that because you're selling jewelry, you should have a try-on solution. We actually made a try-on solution in 2014, which was done with an American company, very, very cutting edge, but it didn't work for our customers. So wherever we see that the technology does not solve the problem which we are trying to solve, whether a business or a consumer problem, we don't use it. Because in many cases, the technology has not reached a level that it can solve the problem also. So, wherever applicable we do, if the technology is not available, we build it also ourselves. But wherever the technology doesn't work, we don't get caught up in, in a race. It's not an arms race, right? That you have to use metaverse or you have to use AR, VR.
Absolutely.
And I think that's very important.
Okay. So yeah, that's a very good point. That use technology where it makes sense. Though I have seen for jewelry in particular, AR being tried on quite a lot, and even in the fashion space, for example, not necessarily very successful. In fact,
It works for
fashion is
watches
barely
and
even
eyewear. It works really well, but it doesn't work for jewelry.
For jewelry.
Yeah, but everybody, there are I think 50 startups which are building try-on solutions for jewelry without realizing that the market opportunity is not so great because the technology is not yet matured to that level.
Exactly. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Let's go to Dhiraj. From a technology point of view,
Just want to say,
yeah.
I'm sure none of them are able to sell it to him.
What is that? Oh, technology. Absolutely. So, Dhiraj, you've got a fairly now spread out, business. Are you using anything specific on technology, or how are you doing things, or are you even looking at things like omni-channel? Because omni-channel then might not work well for you if you're selling internationally, for example, right? Unless you have physical store presence. So just talk to us about, are you doing things like omni-channel fulfillment at all online, or just the e-commerce for your online, for your foreign businesses? Yeah.
Right. So just feel like talking about how D2C is a used and abused word, right? I think the most abused thing currently is this omni-channel and offline, right? अभी ऐसा सिचुएशन है कि ऑनलाइन बिजनेस नहीं हो रहा या फिर इट्स लिटिल टफ, इन्वेस्टर का प्रेशर है तो ऑफलाइन कर लो. इट्स लाइक सूर्य कुमार ट्राइंग टू प्ले टेस्ट क्रिकेट. While the game is the same, it is cricket. T20 is very different from test match, right? I'm not saying कि नहीं कर सकते. There'll always be a Sachin Tendulkar who will play both T20 and test match very well. But most of the brands, the D2C brands, they get into offline without understanding the intricacies. Just to give you an example, if just moving from online to offline or offline to online was so easy, ideally a Myntra should have been built by Arvind or a Madhura because they have the best product knowledge in fashion, right? And conversely, if creating offline was so easy, Myntra has tried, and I have a lot of respect for Myntra, right? I think he's done a lot of things right. Myntra has tried offline and they have not been that successful. So that movement from online to offline, offline to online is not easy. I'm not saying it cannot be done, but you should not do it because बाकी सब कर रहे हैं या फिर इन्वेस्टर का प्रेशर है या फिर यहाँ से बिजनेस नहीं आ रहा. आपके T20 का स्कोर इसलिए इंप्रूव नहीं हो जाएगा कि आप टेस्ट मैच में रन बना रहे हैं. टेस्ट मैच का रन टेस्ट मैच में रहेगा, वो T20 का रन T20 में रहेगा. You can't kind of do that. Having said that, for us, offline has been journey, right? We have been doing offline for 4 years. International is one part of our business. It's while it is growing very fast and it's very exciting, it's not the main part of our business, right? We started international only 3 years back. Core of our business is still India, where we are present both online and offline. And online for us has been a journey. And we have been doing offline and figuring out things and kind of improving in that, right? As a business, we don't do things ki baki log kare. In fact, somehow we are a contrarian. यदि market एक तरफ जाता है तो हम दूसरी तरफ जाते हैं, right? And has worked very well for us, because what we see is कि everybody is going towards one direction, then there's some problem, right? Then that story is over. And I think that's the story for omni-channel. I know I'm taking a contrarian view, but that's how it is. You know, I strongly believe that a lot of brands which are trying to do offline without understanding whether they are ready for offline will fail. I hope they don't, because we need a vibrant market. We need more brands in this D2C space. The industry is just growing. But just doing it because everybody is doing it, I think I would be a little careful there.
Yeah, I agree with you. So you're staying online unless you really feel the need to be offline.
No,
Is that what's saying?
we have 500 offline. In fact, we are the only fashion brand to be present in all top departmental stores. So we are in Shoppers, we are in Reliance, we are in Trends, we are in Central, and we have been doing it for 3 years. But what we have just realized that, you know, if you try to marry a lot of things, it is a problem. Offline business has to be run like an offline business. The dynamics are different. What is required to succeed in a Shoppers stop is not the same that is required to succeed in D2C, right? उसके dynamics different है, उसका merchandising plan different है, the way that business is run is different, the success parameters are different. In our in our josh to kind of grow the business, sometimes we end up doing things which are not necessarily good for the overall business. That's my only point.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Very good point. So I think we've kind of come to the end of our session. I want to ask just one question, just a point of view for each of you folks. Basically, what's happened is with D2C brands, a lot of D2C brands have grown, right? The business number of D2C brands in India is huge. I think it's close to 1,000 probably coming up now. As this is happening, and you talked about various corporates then kind of having a basket of D2C brands, right? That concept of house of brands seems to now be kind of coming in. Do you see, each of you, do you see as an individual brand that's running on your own, okay, to now become a basket, part of a basket of, a large corporate that's actually going to have 5 or 6 different brands, like a Nykaa, for example, acquired 3 or 4 to actually now sell under Nykaa, but with their individual brand names. This house of brands concept, what's your view on whether that's a good thing happening for the Indian, for the market, or it's not a great thing that's going to happen? It's going to disrupt the D2C guys.
So I think as a concept, as I earlier told you, right, I'm a firm believer that the portfolio of brands will work. But the way house of brands that is happening in India currently, I have my doubts about it, mainly due to 2 reasons, right? उसमें भी थोड़ा herd mentality है. Lot of house of brands in India have started because Thrasio worked. But Thrasio has worked in a different environment. When you are operating in a US market, your gross margins are 80%. Whereas in India, it is 30-40%. When a small brand is operating out of US, typically they are just sourcing products from China and then they're selling it on Amazon, right? So if a big corporate is doing that, they're able to get some scale both in terms of sourcing and in terms of distribution. India, it is little more complicated. Most of the brands here are not just sourcing products from China, right? They have a supply base, they have built their own production capability and all of that, right? So what we have seen in the last 2 years that it started with a lot of fanfare and we had some unicorn in that space, but most of them are finding it difficult to integrate those brands. It's not easy to integrate 25 brands where the founder plays a huge role in the success of the brand. So while as a concept, I think that the portfolio of brand is a way to go, but the way it is being done in India, I have my doubts how it is.
So it's all about execution. Avnish, have a point of view.
See, I think that, you have a plan, right? Your strategy is in place. And in the course of that execution of that strategy, if you see opportunities to create brands, I think you should do that. Like in our case, we have created a silver brand called Shaya, which is now 5 years old, right? And it's doing really well. But it's not that because everybody is doing multiple brands, let's go and do it. So you should not deviate from whatever is your plan just because there's a new trend or a new something which everybody is trying to do. So in a way, if you have a clear plan, you should stick to it. And in the course of that, if there is a need to create more brands, then you should do that.
Good point. Charanjeev and Saloni. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with him. And just to add, right, sometimes you realize as a brand that you have a certain playbook and skill set that you have figured out, right? Like for them to do a 0 to 1 in CaratLane wouldn't have been so difficult to do a 0 to 1 in Chai. Honsa is a great example. Mama did well, and then there are, brand after brand, and that they have the skill set, the team, the playbook with them on how to take a brand from 0 to 20 quickly, right? So I think it does make sense to do that, and I think it should be done for the right reasons, right? Because you know that you have the skill set and the strength to launch the other brand, and you see an opportunity. And I think then it makes sense.
Yeah.
In my view, with Singh Styled's view, I don't think so anyone will acquire us because it's a Sikh brand. So I don't know how many brands out there to acquire us. But I've always said that I have been actually been mentored that please go ahead and start another brand for non-Sikhs and all. And I've always said that you don't need to do that, right? If your product is good and your reason, if you're focused, these products can be enjoyed by everyone. So you actually become a house. Like we want to become the next big after Gillette. If you are growing a beard, you should only come to Singh Style. So we are the biggest house for a beard brand or the next beard brand in the world, right? So going prior to this, to your question about technology, I just wanted to add that, so Singh Style is purely online, by the way, right? And for us, technology has been as, we didn't even have an inventory management system, which all of them have been enjoying, right? So we had to, because when it comes to turbans and all, there's a lot of customization. And we had to build each and everything from grounds up. So the only way forward, which I tell to founders, is don't get too much into the technology part. Start, as you scale up, you will start figuring out what technology is there and what needs to be used, because some other D2C brand is saying, oh, ye control le lo, or wo le lo, ye le lo. You will get lost in technology and you'll lose your focus on building your brand, right? So that's something.
Good. That's very good advice. Let me just share a little summary of what I've heard from the folks out here. And we'll close the session with that, and then maybe we'll open up for a bunch of questions. But D2C, as we started off, has been around for a long time. It's more about the marketing around the world now that's kind of opened up a lot more opportunities. It's good and bad, right? Well, not less bad, but I think more good. It's bringing all of these brands into focus and all of the support that comes with it then. So that's one aspect. The other common thread, as I said, I saw with everyone is that they all see a market opportunity and then you kind of fill it up. You don't become an also-ran. You can, if you become an also-ran, you have to probably execute a lot better than the current guys. So that's another takeaway. Both Charanjeev and Dhiraj talked about, one spoke about Atma to Atmanirbhar. I really like that phrase. And the other one spoke about lifetime value of the customer, right? So essentially they're talking about, satisfy the customer entirely, if there's an opportunity to kind of expand within the customer. So scale is not necessarily about getting different customers. It could be about fulfilling that entire customer need. Right? That's one more takeaway. We talked about, corporates and house of brands, and Avnish and Saloni and all gave good inputs as to leverage the corporate capabilities and get in only when you really need to. Don't try to get acquired and try to do more than you can do. I think that's one important takeaway. Focus is another very good point of view, that focus on what your value proposition is, stick to that. Don't try to deviate while Charanjeev's getting other audience outside of his regular customers. He's focusing on his customer, right? The main audience to start with. Saloni talked about trust and how they're building trust online using technology. That's another thing, right? How do you avoid the physical side of it and still handle it with tech? I think these are the few takeaways that I got out of it. I hope this was useful for you all. Any questions? We'll open it up. I think you can just speak loudly.
So I just wanted to understand what can be the downside for the online well-established brands which has created their online presence so well and they have deep understanding of the product. So along having the physical presence, they can have a very secured, I will say, foot into the physical market along with the well-established brands. They can not only have this competition with those brands, but they can create a space for themselves and can prove that they are better than them.
Again, coming to the cricket analogy, right? It is like playing on Australia. If you are an Indian brand or whatever, if you're a D2C brand, and that's your core, it's like playing on the Indian pitches. You're used to the spin. You know कि यार ये digital करना है, ये supply chain handle करना है. This is how I get my customer data. You know, so the skill sets that you have acquired is like playing spin. Going to offline, it has different set of challenges. For example, if you're doing general trade, there the biggest challenge is how do you collect money, right? So collection becomes very important, right? If you are doing your EBOs, for example, the single most important factor that is required to succeed in EBO is your store selection, which is a different skill set altogether. If you are doing LFS, it is about how do you create a brand image for the gatekeeper, your cycle of merchandise changes in fashion, especially in e-commerce. I'm sure a lot of you know that we work on a fast fashion cycle. Every month we have a drop. But in LFS, it works 18 months backwards. So it is, as I said, it is not key, if you have online presence, you can't do offline. I'm just saying that the skill sets required to succeed offline are very different. At some point of time, you would be ready for that. So as I said, if you're Sachin Tendulkar, आप obviously spin भी खेल सकते हैं, fast bowling भी खेल सकते हैं. But if आप Surya Kumar हैं and you're just starting your career, don't try to play cricket. Don't try to play a test match, right? It might ruin your T20 career as well.
Yeah, but at the same time, what I believe in, if ultimately you want to be the best batsman or the bowler or whatever, I don't have that understanding of cricket, but how, as much as I've watched, I can say that ultimately everybody sees up to Sachin Tendulkar. Everybody who's into the online space wants to go to the offline and have their store of their own. So there's always learning and there's always challenges and the risk. If you have started online, you can always shift to offline and can collaborate with different retails. You're already working with Reliance. I'm from Reliance, so I believe that there should be collaborations. Other than that, I have an other question.
Can I interrupt you? Yeah. Sorry to cut you short. Let's have this discussion offline.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Another question to all the panelists over here. So, how in the very rapidly evolving market, how do you deal with the diverse customer preferences, and how do you anticipate and analyze the demand before the customer is there? Like the customer base is about 20 to 35 years, so it's evolving every day. So how do you keep up with that? Yeah, that's it.
I think let's take that offline. It's a longer discussion maybe. Yeah. Any other questions? Good questions though.
Hey guys, hi, this is Yash. I'm co-founder of Blitz. We help brands in delivering experience. So my question is that we talked about product and how product creates the lifetime value and stickiness of the customers. I want to ask around the pricing part and the convenience part. What do you guys think? What plays more pivotal role in shaping a brand's journey over a long period of time?
Let's have one person give a short answer if you can. Pricing or convenience, what plays a bigger role?
See, there is no answer, like one answer. ये बहुत ही philosophical question है, right? Like if there was a simple answer for this, it all depends on what business you are creating, what product you have, and when you say convenience, right? it also depends on what level of convenience you're able to create, right? Like if you are saying, like Amazon, that I can deliver on the same day, that's a great convenience for certain products and some people will be willing to pay for it. So I don't think there is one simple answer for that. It is a very, very nuanced, layered question. And I think based on what your data or your business or your consumers are saying, you have to find an answer to that.
Okay, great. Thanks everyone. Thank you to all the panelists. Good discussion.